Vikings, let's win this game.
Vikings Nation, the air inside this building feels like a storm front rolling in off the prairie. Decisions are stacking up about who's going to sit in the general manager's chair. The quarterback room looks like a jigsaw puzzle dumped on the floor. Big-time offensive pieces are staring at the future like it just changed lanes without signaling. The defense had some tense closed-door moments too. And hanging over all of it is a trade rumor that rattles anyone bleeding purple and gold like thunder shaking the windows. Before we crack this open, let me grab you for half a second. If you haven't already, lock in with the channel. It costs you nothing, but it keeps this whole thing alive. And jump into the comments while you're at it. This isn't my room, it's ours, and fan voices are the engine. So here's where it starts. The Vikings quarterback situation right now looks like a card table after someone flipped it in frustration. After last week, this team hit the offseason needing more than a safety net. They need a real second door when the first one jams. Not just a clipboard holder, but someone who can steady the ship if the seas get rough. That's where J.J. McCarthy enters the picture. Everyone wanted to watch the kid blossom, no question. Then the knee injury erased his rookie year like chalk in the rain. When he got back on the field, it was a roller coaster. Some Sundays you exhaled and thought, okay, this can work. Other Sundays felt like the ceiling was dropping inch by inch. That tension leaks everywhere into the locker room and up into the stands. Then the ground shifted again when Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was fired. A front office shakeup resets the compass. New priorities, new voices. And when you're already over $40 million above the salary cap, every move feels like threading a needle in boxing gloves. Then comes the gut punch. Sam Darnold was here. He left. He landed in Seattle. And now he's playing in the Super Bowl. That stings in a way you can't wash off. Not jealousy, just that hollow thought of, that should have been our story. Now Minnesota has to rebuild the position with tight money and the 18th pick staring back at them. There's no splurging aisle to browse. That's why trade whispers started getting louder. The name that keeps floating up is Mac Jones from the 49ers. He's not a fireworks show, but he's got tread on the tires. First-round pedigree. Stepped in and gave you a respectable season when called upon. And that cap hit, around $3.5 million, sounds like a song when your wallet's empty. But here's the snag. Once a quarterback proves he can win, the rest of the league smells it. Now you're hearing the Cardinals, Browns, and Jets might jump in. That's how the cost climbs. A third-rounder today can morph into a second-rounder before you blink. And I'll say it straight. Paying a second for someone meant to be competition or insurance is rolling dice on a windy table. I understand Kevin O'Connell's angle. He wants someone pushing McCarthy in 2026, someone who walks in with sharp elbows and says, miss a beat and I'm in. That kind of heat can forge a young quarterback faster. But you can't patch one leak by punching another hole in the draft. This roster needs bodies. I want your take. Would you burn a high pick on that kind of quarterback move? Or would you ride development and spend those picks shoring up the rest of the house? Sound off below. And don't wander off because the next chapter involves a heavyweight name out of Denver orbiting that GM job, and that could flip the whole script. Across Minnesota, the general manager opening has become the kind of topic that gets debated over bar stools and coffee counters. The Vikings fired Kwesi Adofo-Mensah on January 30th, right smack in the middle of the hiring cycle. That alone raises eyebrows. When teams break pattern, there's usually a deeper current underneath. Fans in purple and gold were already wincing watching Sam Darnold take Seattle to the Super Bowl. He wore our colors last year. Then Minnesota let him walk. They pushed their chips onto the J.J. McCarthy plan, and the table didn't pay out. Stack that on top of draft classes that didn't deliver the reinforcements needed, and patience finally snapped like an overstretched rope. Then a familiar name started drifting into the conversation, but not one you casually pencil in. The buzz centers on George Paton, current general manager of the Denver Broncos. This isn't coming from message board smoke. Well-connected voices say he's emerged as a candidate, and when respected reporters say that, it means someone inside whispered it. Peyton's roots here run deep. Over a decade in Minnesota under Rick Spielman climbing to assistant general manager. This isn't a stranger needing a map. He knows the heat. He understands what Defend the North really demands, and he knows how this fan base reacts when progress turns into backtracking. But here's the hitch. He's still under contract in Denver. The Broncos want to extend him, at least that's the talk, but nothing's been stamped publicly. That's where the door cracks open. If an extension stalls, possibilities grow. And Minnesota could be willing to wait. That's why Rob Brzezinski matters so much right now. He's not flashy, but he's the glue. He'll steady things as interim general manager, at least through the draft. 27 years in the building. He speaks fluent salary cap. He understands contracts like a mechanic knows engine sounds. And gymnastics is exactly what this team will be performing. From my seat, the message is clear. If Peyton is truly the target, the Vikings want a football-first operator steering the ship. Someone scouts and coaches trust instinctively, but waiting isn't free. While time passes, the quarterback room stays unsettled, the cap squeezes tighter, and the roster can't freeze in place. There's another wrinkle, too. A new general manager with real authority could tug the rope differently than Kevin O'Connell, speed some calls up, slam the brakes on others, and suddenly the season's direction gets sketched in February before a single snap is taken. So let me throw it back to you. Is waiting for a name like that worth it? Or does Minnesota need to make a hire now and clear the fog immediately? Hang with me, because the next segment dives into defensive tension and a major name who almost walked. There's a certain vibe when something's off in a locker room, like hearing glass clink when nobody admits it broke. That's what this was. And it explains why the defense became such a touchy subject behind closed doors. Over the last few days, reports came out that one of the leaders wasn't comfortable with the direction of things. This wasn't ego. It was concern about decisions, roster construction, and that familiar Sunday nightmare when injuries stack and depth vanishes. That's when fans in purple and gold start pacing, because the bill always comes due. Only after Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah was fired did the full picture sharpen. The name at the center is Brian Flores. And yes, the defensive coordinator let his contract expire after the 2025 season before agreeing to a new deal. That's not routine. That's a flare shot into the sky. He looked at head coaching roles and other opportunities around the league. In the end, he returned under a fresh contract. What leaked is that he wasn't aligned with how the former GM handled certain football operations. Adolfo-Mensah came in learning on the fly, and that approach can clash hard with people who live in cleats and grass. That friction reportedly became a daily grind. Negotiations even required Rob Brzezinski to step in, with Kevin O'Connell acting as the bridge during tense exchanges. That tells you how deep the crack ran. And here's the part that hits anyone who lives and breathes Vikings football. The defense took a real leap thanks to smart veteran moves, and Flores was the architect. Blake Cashman, Jonathan Greenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, those additions rewired the unit's personality. But when drafts don't deliver, you're forced to rely on clever contracts and hidden gems. That's walking a tightrope in the wind. 1 week you're sturdy, the next, depth caves. The Vikings made it clear they didn't want to lose Flores. They opened the checkbook. Reports pointed to more than $6 million per year, top-tier money for a coordinator. When I saw that, I thought, finally, the value is clear. Elite defense doesn't just materialize, especially fighting for every inch in the NFC North. But cash alone doesn't heal everything. If Flores felt steadier after the leadership change, that's a signal flare. The next GM has to bring stability, earn scouting trust, and sync with the coaching staff. Otherwise, this becomes another long-running drama, and nobody has the stomach for that. I want to hear you. Was Flores right to push this far, or did it put the team in a dangerous spot? Drop your thoughts below, and stick with me, because now we turn to the biggest star on the roster, and he didn't mince words about the Super Bowl. Let me level with you about something that twists the stomach of every Vikings fan. When the face of your offense talks about the Super Bowl, it's never just filler. There's weight behind it. There's irritation, longing, and subtext. Justin Jefferson spoke about watching Sam Darnold play in the Super Bowl with the Seattle Seahawks, and he didn't sugarcoat how hard that is. At the same time, he showed genuine respect for Darnold's road back. A guy doubted, written off, then finding his footing again. Then came the line that cuts. Jefferson said he's rooting for Seattle to win. I read that and nodded, but it still landed heavy. Because we remember, Darnold wore our jersey. That chapter could have been written in Minnesota. Jefferson made it clear he wants that experience here. But the Vikings chose another route. They banked on J.J. McCarthy, and it didn't sink. There were moments of promise, sure, but too many drives stalled, too many throws off timing. And when quarterback play wobbles, the guy running pristine routes pays the toll. What really stands out is Jefferson's tone. Warm, respectful, but painfully honest. He praises Darnold, yet you can hear the unspoken question, why not us? That's human. That's locker room truth. And that mirrors how fans in purple and gold feel. Then the numbers shout. In 2024 with Darnold, Jefferson exploded. Over 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns. In 2025, with instability at quarterback, his output dropped hard. The touchdown dip hurts the most. He's still elite. Without steadiness at the most critical position, it just looks like he vanished. He didn't. He was boxed in. That's when the conversation nobody wants begins. How long does he put up with this? He's not pounding the table yet, but the league watches talents like this closely. It assumes they want championship runs every year. And those of us who lives and breathes Vikings football No, patience wears thin when the wheels keep spinning. From my seat, this goes deeper than quotes. When a star talks like this, he's telling you exactly where his head is, and he knows time doesn't stop. Stay with me, because the next piece hits that nerve dead on. Trade talk surfaced that, if it ever turns real, flips this franchise upside down. There are rumors that make you sit forward on the couch without realizing it. This is one of those, because it's not about tweaking the playbook, it's about tearing into the core of the offense. Over the last few days, chatter started swirling about a trade involving a superstar everybody knows. But let's build the picture first. The Vikings finished 9-8, no playoffs, a season ending with more questions than answers at quarterback, leadership changes, a tightening salary cap, and the rest of the league circling like sharks. Now here it is, the name attached is Justin Jefferson. The team being mentioned is the Buffalo Bills. From Buffalo's angle, it's straightforward. They want to solve their receiver issue once and for all. With Joe Brady now head coach, it lines up that he'd chase someone he knows who can flip an offense instantly. Jefferson with Josh Allen would be a nightmare matchup, plain and simple. There's history too. Brady and Jefferson go back to LSU. That eases trust, language, and timing. In Buffalo, Jefferson would also take heat off Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman, giving them space to grow. And Allen would finally have that toss it up and watch him work option. I'll admit it, just imagining it sends a cold wave through me, the wrong kind. But the brutal question sits on our side. Why would Minnesota even consider this? And I won't dress it up. When a team doesn't know what it has at quarterback, its biggest offensive star becomes a spark. It can either light the way or start a fire. If McCarthy doesn't leap forward, frustration spreads. Fans feel it, players feel it, and whispers turn into pressure. Some argue moving Jefferson now avoids future drama, selling before it turns into a circus. I understand the logic, but it's ice cold, because Jefferson isn't just numbers, he's identity. He's stubborn hope wrapped in purple and gold. The counter-argument is draft capital. If the Vikings believe they need ammo to chase a better quarterback or build around McCarthy, picks matter. But picks miss too. I've watched that film in Minnesota more times than I'd like. It's the scene where you stockpile selections and lose the guy who converts 3rd and 8. What unsettles me most is the signal this sends. If this chatter exists, it means people around the league think Minnesota might listen. That's what instability does. It invites others to test your resolve and tug at your stars. So sit with that. This isn't just trade or no trade. It's about direction, patience, and ambition. And everything we've talked about funnels into one question that keeps knocking around your skull. Here's what's really weighing on me today. When the quarterback room feels like a scavenger hunt, when the general manager chair still isn't settled, and when even Brian Flores needed reassurance to stay, the picture sharpens. The Vikings are standing at a fork in the road. Then you hear Justin Jefferson talk about the Super Bowl with that mix of pride and ache. Right after that, Bills trade rumors surface. This isn't background noise. This is pressure building. Here's my line in the sand. If Minnesota doesn't get the front office and quarterback right now, the window slams shut faster than anyone wants to admit. And no fan base in purple and gold can survive living in almost every season. Defend the North isn't a catchphrase, it's a promise. So talk to me, drop your thoughts. This space belongs to everyone who lives and breathes Vikings football. Do you keep Jefferson at all costs, even if the offense risks sputtering again? Or do you entertain a massive trade to reset the board? And stay sharp, because the coming weeks will tell us who's really steering this thing and where it's headed. Stay tuned. SKOL Vikings, let's go!